From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. The Chinese meat processing company Shuanghui International is proposing to buy the American ham and pork producer Smithfield Foods. It would be the biggest purchase of an American company by a Chinese buyer. Ham and pork are the meat of pigs. Virginia ham is famous around the world. The town of Smithfield, Virginia, where the company started, calls itself the ham capital of the world. Larry Sancher is the sales manager for Smithfield Foods. He says the explorer Marco Polo brought a basis for curing ham to Italy from China. He says this kind of cured ham turned out to be the prosciutto that we know today. Later, settlers brought the formula for making prosciutto with them to the United States. He says the main reason Smithfield became the center of ham processing was because local Native Americans had methods for producing salt from nearby ocean water. Virginia Wade manages a store that specializes in ham made in Smithfield. She says the ham is aged at least 6 months in salt. She says the uncooked hams are similar to ham in China. Before Smithfield Foods can be sold to the Chinese company, the purchase must be approved by the American government and by Smithfield Foods stockholders. There have been concerns in the past about some Chinese companies doing business in the United States. But Gary Hofbauer expects the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States to approve this purchase. He is with the Peterson Institute for International Economics in Washington. Mr. Hofbauer believes the Chinese company is buying the world's good opinion of Smithfield Foods, including the quality and safety of its products. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. A new report says China's demand for food imports will sharply rise in the next 10 years. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development made the prediction. They say China will increase its imports of grains, oilseeds, and meat. Angel Gurria is Secretary General of the OECD. He says China's need for food is growing at a time when world food production is decreasing. Imports to China are expected to grow at a yearly rate of 3% to 1.7 million tons by the year 2022. China's imports of crops used to feed animals, called coarse grains, are expected to double by 2022, and imports of oilseeds are predicted to rise 41%. Angel Gurria says China's economic growth is fueling its hunger for imports. He says the country already has a big effect on world food markets. José Graziano da Silva is the head of the Food and Agriculture Organization. He says reducing the large amount of food that is now wasted would help meet the growing demand for food. The rise in the Chinese demand for food is expected to cause grain and other commodity prices to rise. Businesses are taking new steps because of China's influence on world food trade. Last month, the Chinese meat processing company Shuanghui announced a $7 billion offer for the American pork company Smithfield Foods. China is already the world's biggest importer of milk and soybeans. It is expected to become the world's biggest consumer of pork, passing the European Union within 10 years. The FAO and OECD say that will cause international pork prices to rise. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, welcome to the Economics Report in Special English. China has been struggling to deal with record levels of smog over Beijing. Recently, officials in several Chinese cities announced plans to trade carbon credits as a way to reduce air pollution. For many years, China considered economic growth more important than the environment. The nation remains hungry for energy, but it has also become the world's biggest producer of carbon gases. Beijing's smoggy days have made international news. Small particles in the air reduce visibility and threaten public health. Smog has been a concern in the city for years, but a sharp rise in pollution levels in January led to sharp criticism from many Chinese. Pollution from coal-burning power centers and factories is a big part of the problem. Now, officials hope to control industrial air pollution by creating systems to trade carbon credits. The trading systems or platforms would enable companies to receive credits for lowering greenhouse gas emissions. The credits can then be traded. The goal of these market-based platforms is to get businesses to invest in clean technology. Markets for carbon credits are expected to open this year in 7 cities, including Beijing, Shanghai, and Tianjin. Officials say the government has decided to start with pilot programs because carbon trading is something new. China wants to launch a national carbon trading program by 2016. Still, public pressure continues building on the government to find an answer to thick air pollution. Wu Changhua is with the Climate Group. She says the Chinese people are looking at more than jobs. They want a better environment, too. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. Investors in the United States are preparing for the first public sale of stock in the Chinese company Alibaba. The company sells goods by linking buyers and sellers in the huge Chinese online market. Alibaba is expected to make its initial public offering, called an IPO, in September on the New York Stock Exchange. The total value of the company, based in Hangzhou, has been estimated at about $200 billion. Reports from Bloomberg News say Alibaba is offering investors a 12% share of the company. That would mean the company could raise more than $20 billion in the public stock sale. After the IPO, Alibaba could become one of the most valuable technology companies in the world. The e-commerce company is responsible for most online sales in China. It dealt with more exchanges last year than U.S. companies Amazon and eBay combined. And it has more than 230 million active buyers. Scott Kennedy is director of Indiana University's Research Center for Chinese Politics and Business. He says Alibaba has grown from a very small company 15 years ago to the main online seller in China. The company holds about 80% of the Chinese online sales market. Scott Kennedy says the company is profitable, which is unusual for a technology company first offering an IPO. Alibaba has chosen to sell its stock to the public on the New York Stock Exchange rather than in China. China is now the world's second largest market for e-commerce. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. Recent Chinese trade information shows that China's exports to North Korea decreased by more than 13% during the first 6 months of 2013. This is the first time in 4 years that exports have fallen. Exports decreased by about $1.6 billion from January to June, compared to the same period last year. The last time exports from China to North Korea dropped was in 2009, during the world financial crisis. This year, there was a large decrease in shipments of unprocessed oil to North Korea. Lu Chao studies at the Liaoning Academy of Social Sciences. He says China is the biggest oil provider to North Korea. He said last year, China exported 500,000 tons of oil to the country. Mr. Lu says China placed trade restrictions on North Korea this year after its third nuclear test. He says the Chinese government made the decision based on a United Nations Security Council resolution. North Korea's decision to carry out its third nuclear test earlier this year has affected ties between the two countries. Following the test, Chinese students called on the government to completely cut ties with North Korea. Chinese officials have condemned the test. They have called for the continuation of six-nation talks aimed at ending the country's nuclear weapons programs. In May, the government-operated People's Bank of China announced it was no longer doing business with North Korea's Foreign Trade Bank. Recently, officials from the United States and South Korea met. They announced their plan to continue placing restrictions on North Korea and to seek more assistance from China in the process. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.